In this episode, we will be discussing Alabama tenant noncompliance or failure to pay rent. The Alabama Uniform Residential Landlord and Tenant Act provides the following remedies for a landlord when a tenant fails to comply with a rental agreement or pay rent. Noncompliance or misrepresentation. If there is a material noncompliance by the tenant with the rental agreement, an intentional misrepresentation of a material fact in a rental agreement or application, or non-compliance with the requirements found in our video titled Alabama Tenant Responsibility to Maintain Dwelling Unit, which materially affects health and safety, the landlord may deliver a written notice to terminate the lease to the tenant, specifying the acts and omissions constituting the breach, and that the rental agreement will terminate upon a date not less than 7 days after receipt of the notice. If the breach is not remedied within the 7 days after receipt of the notice to terminate the lease, the rental agreement shall terminate on the date provided in the notice, unless the tenant adequately remedies the breach before the date specified in the notice. Misrepresentations are non-curable. An intentional misrepresentation of a material fact in a rental agreement or application may not be remedied or cured. For example, if the tenant had a criminal record but lied about it on a rental application, it would be a non-curable offense and grounds for termination unless the landlord consents. Failure to pay rent. If rent is unpaid when due, the landlord may deliver a written notice to terminate the lease to the tenant, specifying the amount of rent and any late fees owed to remedy the breach, and that the rental agreement will terminate upon a date not less than 7 days after receipt of the notice. If the breach is not remedied within the 7 days, the rental agreement shall terminate. It is important to note that if a non-compliance of rental agreement occurs or a misrepresentation, along with a failure to pay rent, the 7-day notice period to terminate the lease for non-payment of rent shall govern. Damages, attorney fees, and relief. A landlord may recover actual damages and reasonable attorney fees and obtain injunctive relief for non-compliance by the tenant with the rental agreement or those requirements found in our other video titled Alabama Tenant Responsibility to Maintain Dwelling Unit. Non-curable acts. No breach of any of the terms or obligations of the lease may be cured by a tenant more than 4 times in any 12-month period, except by the express written consent of the landlord. The following acts by a tenant or occupant shall constitute a non-curable default of the rental agreement, and in such cases the landlord may terminate the rental agreement upon a 7-day notice. The tenant shall have no right to remedy such a default unless the landlord consents. Such acts include, but are not limited to, the following: possession or use of illegal drugs in the dwelling unit or in the common areas, discharge of a firearm on the premises of the rental property, except in cases of self-defense, defense of a third party, or as permissible in Section 13A-3-23 of the Alabama Criminal Code, and criminal assault of a tenant or guest on the premises of the rental property, except in cases of self-defense, defense of a third party, or as permissible in Section 13A-3-23 of the Alabama Criminal Code. For additional laws and articles, visit AmericanLandlord.com.